It is now. All right, welcome to yet another styling thing. So what we're going to look at is, I'm going to say let's start a new app for this one. And let's look at how we might do fixed navigation and maybe a off-canvas menu, which is that's like the facial tissue to Kleenex. Say off-canvas navigation to hamburger. Cool. So I'm going to call this off-canvas demo. I'm going to make an index.html. They ever work with somebody from the UK or Australia or really anywhere in the Commonwealth, they say HTML, and they really lean into that. In fact, I was working with an author once. It was like, don't tell me about HTML. I know HTML. All right, so you do. I'm going to throw a durable script file in there too. And I'm going to borrow the stuff we had from the SNEED. I keep one of those lorem ipsums handy. And all right, give me a noun. What is this app?
Peaches.
Peaches. Call it peach tree. All right, so I should be able to serve something like this up. Let's sanity check ourselves on these files. Okay, JavaScript works. Still having that wonky CSS thing. All right, I'll call that good and wired. We'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of this. So first things first, let's get some content in here. I'll throw on the mobile emulator. Cool, looking good. Well, not looking good, but looking. All right, cool. So I got some content here, and we want to have a fixed footer nav. That's step one. That's our thin vertical slice, is footer navigation on this. Give me some ideas. If you had to do this, how are you going to have a footer nav, fixed footer?
Got to create the footer first.
Sure. And those things we had in our design, those like icons there, what are those?
Probably links of some kind.
Probably links of some kind. Anything else about them?
Buttons, maybe?
Say that again. Buttons? Maybe.
Yeah, buttons.
So
Maybe.
a button semantically is something that performs an action on the page. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's not those. So a button would like change the state of the page and somehow. So these are going to be links. These navigate somewhere.
Oh, so they're going to be nav links.
What was that, Lynn?
Nav links.
Nav links. So I'll probably have a nav in there, and it's some kind of
some kind of,
go ahead.
an unordered list, maybe?
An unordered list of navigation links. You're beautiful. All right, so I've got this footer here. All the way down at the bottom, I have an unordered list of navigation links in my footer. Cool. What should I do next?
Turn your UL or nav into some kind of flex container to be able to get those into a row.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to say that UL, let's see, nav ULs have display flex. Okay, so they're in a row. What else? How do I get rid of those dots?
List
Text
type.
decoration none.
Text decoration none. Ah, I didn't do it.
List type.
List
Type none.
List type none. Or list style none. That gets them to go away. Okay. What else?
Maybe a justify content space between or around.
In the space between these wicked lines. All right. Hey, what's up with, why aren't they like going all the way to the edges?
We haven't done our Meyer reset.
Okay. That's true. Which particular part of the Meyer reset is pushing these things a little bit to the right?
The built-in margins.
Yep. I think it's technically padding, but it should be margin. I think that's incorrect. Yeah, it's padding. Margin is more appropriate for that, but whatever. Who am I? So how about I throw a Meyer reset in there? Actually, I'm going to show you one other way you can do the Meyer reset instead of just copy and pasting the thing in. Just fine. We can look Meyer reset CDN. CDN is a content delivery network. It's just a place that has files, basically. So you can do something like, check this out. They'll even give you the link tag. Got to make sure it goes before your style sheet. Ta-da! we are now reset.
If you were doing all this in SAS, would you have just like a separate file that would do the reset stuff that you would import?
Yeah, you can totally do that. Also, there's like good reasons to use the CDN and good reasons not to. So like the CDN is only going to work over the internet. So like if it's cached, for example. Now, that's also happens to be the benefit of using a CDN is, spoiler alert, I didn't invent the Meyer reset. Lots of people use the Meyer reset. So if this URL happens to be in your browser cache somewhere, it doesn't try to look for it. It just goes, cool, got it, know where that is. So you can speed up load times for a lot of users by using a CDN that just extracts out some common thing that they've already used. That's also a good reason to like use a CDN for something like React, like the actual library, not your app in React. Somebody else has been somewhere and they happen to be using that same version of that from the same CDN source. Well, then neat, it's cached, they already have it. So trade-offs, it's all trade-offs. All right, cool. So this is all nice and reset. Those are looking adequately spaced apart. Take that. I don't want them to be X by Z though. I want them to be like cool icons. How do I do that?
Import an outside library.
Nice. So I could use something like font awesome. Font awesome, spoiler alert, not a font. Oh, it kind of is. It's a glyph font. So glyphs are, this isn't the page you're looking for. What? Huh? Weird. These are glyphs. Strictly speaking, so is this F and this R and this E. Like a letter is like, that's part of the English language. Not every language has letters. Some of them have characters and whatever else, right? So the generic term for like a shape like that is a glyph. And so we've got these 4 glyphs here. We can also have these glyphs that are like icons and pictures and stuff. So Font Awesome is a huge collection of 8,000 of these things. So I want like the home icon, for example. All right, that'll work for me. So then it's telling me how to use it. You make this I tag and give it a class of FAS and a class of FA home. Now, Kyle, isn't that a utility class? Yes, it is. I'm gonna let it slide this one time. Okay, so if I have Font Awesome, I should be able to do something like that and get the these things to show up. Right now they look like nothing. So I'm gonna use another CDN. Font Awesome Solid CDN. So, but I copy this script tag. No, don't want the script tag. There we go. I copy that link tag. I'm going to throw this one after my reset as well. Let's see, did it work? Sometimes when I'm using the Font Awesome CDN, I run into these problems. Like sometimes you have to take the S off of that to get it to work. Oh. Shoot, what if I do all? So which one was Font Awesome? There we go. we go. There's my home icon. So doing it from the CDN, it's FA instead of FAS. FAS might still work. Let's see. Yeah, FAS still works. Cool. So I got some icons showing up. I'm going to do home for one of them. I'm going to do Amazon for one of them. And for the other one, I'll do our booger. Bars, that's called. Oops. Wouldn't give me the Amazon one. Sometimes you have to pay more for certain ones. Let's see, we'll give me Facebook. FA Facebook S. Ah, it's FAB for brand. There we go. Okay, so I got icons showing up. Now what? Give me a next step.
Probably want to give them a little bit more size.
A little bit more size. Where? For the icons?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll maybe say they're technically fonts, so all of our font stuff works. I'll make those 24 pixels. All right, even more than that. Let's do 32. Okay, those are pretty good. What else? Where are they purple?
Because they're links and they've been clicked on.
Totally. So how do I stop that?
Just give them a color.
Mm-hmm. So I could do something like color red. All right, so that works. Now I could do something like black, and like that kind of works. Here's an interesting problem with this, though. You might remember from yesterday, we were talking about how you can really soften up like a really harsh, like GeoCities-y look by not going with a pure black. So let's say I set the body to something like a 20%. Okay, so that softens that up a little bit. Hey! Didn't extend to those links though. Curious. What if I take that off? Now I'm back to the link. So I can also do this color down here, like that. But something I don't like about that. Now we're representing the exact same thing in two different places. Any guesses what cool CSS trick I might be able to do to get around that?
Body descendant I.
So that's really the same thing. I'm still just doing that in two different places. It's not going to get the color because the link thing is going to override it.
Can you create variables in CSS?
You can, but that's still doing the same thing in two places, although helps a little bit. So yeah, I could do, in Sass, it would be something like black is HSL 0%, 20%, and then I make both of these black. Can also do that with CSS variables, which syntax for that, I don't have like right at my command, but I think it's like this. Well, let's see. I think it's that. It might have, yeah, I think it's like that. And then you say, like that. Let's see if that worked. No. Ah, only, oh, so close, man. Oh, aggravating. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I can do that, and then I have at least one like centralized place for those. By the way, no libraries required for that. That's just super modern CSS. I still think Sass variables are better for a couple reasons, but you do technically have variables in CSS as of very recently. Any other guesses?
Just do the body comma I.
Ooh, that's a good guess. So yeah, we could say, all right, this is the list of all the selectors that I want to have this color. Yeah, that works. Still, one more. This is old school CSS.
The links have a default event that once they're clicked, they change color that you can turn off.
So doing all that with JavaScript, that'll always work. You can always do something with JavaScript, but you'll regret that more times than you won't. All right, I'll spare you. There is a CSS unit called inherit. Let's see, 0. Oops, that should work. What gives thing? That's it, right? Not going crazy. Color inherit. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly how that's supposed to work. Should inherit from its parent element. Its parent element oh, I got it, because I'm targeting the I instead of the anchor. So we can do that. Hey, there we go. There's that soft black. We can make that something like that. And it stays the same. That's my favorite solution. Inherit is, all right, whatever my parent is, yeah, just make me that, how about? And like this use case in particular with anchor links, it's a good place for it. Cool, all right. What else can I do to make this a little bit better?
Well, we were talking about a fixed bottom bar, and it's not fixed
Yeah,
yet.
it's definitely not fixed. It's way down there at the bottom, so how do I fix it?
Position absolute.
Oh, good guess. So position absolute, let's take a look at what that'll do. If I absolutely position this footer, Weird.
Is it fixed then?
That made it disappear.
We have to give it like coordinates somehow though for where it lives, don't we?
Okay, so where does it live?
At the bottom.
Okay. Where at the bottom?
Viewport?
Pull out the viewport units. That's what we do 0. Hey! Whoa! So the way that those sizing or those positioning units work in CSS, top, left, right, bottom, and whatever like a unit you use pushes it out from whatever that is. So if I wanted something that was 20 pixels from the bottom, I do that, and there it is. If I want to be 20 pixels from the top, there it is. You can combine these too. Say, all right, 20 from the top and 20 from the left. Cool. You can also use percentages, you can use rems, you can use any other size unit you want to. But if we do something like 0, 0 doesn't have units. Because percentage, pixel, rems, ems, picas, points, 0 is the same in all of them. So 0 is just 0. Okay, why did they all get jammed together?
Because position fixed messes with the display.
Yeah, that's a pretty good guess. Yeah, look how big my footer is now. So maybe if I give that its width back. Hey, now we're starting to get somewhere. Not bad, not bad. Okay, still doesn't look like a modern footer of any kind. Actually, hang on, let's pause here for a sec. So when you position fix something, or if you position absolute something, it is out of the document flow. That means the text no longer, all of the other elements, when they're blocks and inlines and stuff, they push each other out of the way. You have a div and another div. This top div pushes the bottom div out of the way to make room for both of them, right? With absolute and fixed position, that's not what happens. We're saying we want to position it relative to something else. And that includes allowing us to overlap things. We're saying, all right, I want to start using a coordinate grid to figure out where these things go. If you don't specify anything, hang on just a sec. What's up, Duncan? Uh-oh, I'll take a look at it after this lesson, okay? Yeah. So they're saying, I want to use the coordinate system to figure out where something should be placed relative to what? And if you don't specify anything, it's relative to the body. We can also use the keyword position relative in one of its ancestors, and it'll be relative to that. So if you want to see an example, I could do something like, let's see, div, this will be relative. Some absolutely positioned text. Okay, so I'm going to make this, is that down the bottom? I'll push this up a little bit. All right, so I have some absolutely positioned text up here. I'm going to target, this will be relative, position relative. No difference so far. And so when I target that p tag inside of it and say I want it to be absolutely positioned, ooh, interesting. Okay. Let me see. I'm going to put a background color on this. Background color blue. And so this is actually kind of interesting too. So I have this div here, and I have this P inside of it that's absolutely positioned. How come we're not seeing the blue background for this will be relative?
Because the paragraph is absolutely positioned over it.
But it's inside of it. It's a child. Has to do with that document flow thing we were talking about.
The absolutely positioned stuff is out of the document flow, so it won't show up.
It's out of the document flow, which means that that div has no size. What would be giving it size? It has no content. Things that don't have any content in CSS don't take up any space. If it's out of the document flow, it's not generating any space for itself. So one hack around that is we can, actually I don't even think I need a tag for it. Something called a character entity. So character entities start with an ampersand and end with a semicolon, like statements in JavaScript. And then in between, we can do characters that otherwise HTML has a hard time with. This is a non-breaking space. That's like dummy content. I want this thing to have some space to it because all of its children are absolutely positioned. But I don't really care what that is. So we can use non-breaking spaces for that. Hey, and there we go. Okay, so I have some absolutely positioned text. And now, if I do something like top 0, it's taking that text and making it 0 relative to its nearest relative ancestor. If I take this out, it's the body. If I put that back in, it's that. If I give this some height or something, and I say, all right, I want to put this at the very bottom of that container. Well, there it is. I want it 50% through that container. Oh, there we go.
So you said that it goes to the like most close relative ancestor.
Correct.
So does that mean that then the body position is technically all relative?
Yes. Good inference. I guess that'd be a deduction. It's good deduction. Cool. So that works with fixed also. So if you ever need to position something absolutely, either with absolute or you want it to be fixed, so that's like absolute relative to the viewport, basically. We can use relative to scope that a little bit. Works just like scope in JavaScript does. Okay, cool. So we've got our fixed footer, but that's not how fixed footers look.
Got to give
I've
it
used apps before. They don't look like that.
some kind of background color.
Gotta have some kind of background, right? So like, let's be lazy. Let's just say white. Why not? So I say HSL Let's do like an off-white. Okay. Hey, that's starting to look a little bit more happy. What else?
We need to make it so that when you get to the bottom, the text isn't hidden behind it.
Yeah. That sucks. There's stuff down there and we can't see it. How might we do such a thing?
Could you create a margin on the bottom of that, like a bottom margin on the bottom of the body?
You're beautiful. That's exactly what I would do. So, oops. There we go. Yeah, we can make that as big or small as we need to. But now we're not at risk of this content overlapping it. All right, that's pretty good. Still doesn't quite look like a good pro mobile footer though.
Needs some padding.
Needs some padding. It definitely needs some padding. So, all right, what if I give it 16 pixels all around? Uh-oh. What's this shit? Started knocking my stuff over. Any guesses what happened?
It's because you're out of the document scope?
Not quite. My hunch is it has something to do with that.
Because it doesn't account for the scroll bar.
It's not the scroll bar. It doesn't account for the padding, which I think is a bug. And the way that I fix it is has something to do with how it's calculating the size of that box.
Oh, does it need to be like an inline block element? Or
Not quite. It starts like that. Actually, so let's take a closer look at the problem. So it thinks when I added that padding, and I said I wanted it to be 100% of the width, what it did is it took this content in here and made that 407 pixels, which is how wide the thing is, or no, sorry, 375 pixels, which is how wide the mobile emulator is. Cool. And then it added 32 pixels of padding, which pushes it out of bounds. That's not what I want. I want to, if I say 100%, I mean including the padding, including the padding.
Is it that, yeah, box sizing border box thing?
Box sizing border box. So when I set the height or width of something, I want it to basically use the thing's border instead of its content. Content box is the default for that. We want border box, and it fixes it. All right, this is starting to look a little bit better. That's real harsh, though. Like if Google did that, I'd make fun of them. What can I do to help with this a little bit?
Top shadow.
Yeah, so this is another design thing. We want to think of this as like having some physical dimensions and properties to it. This is like Google's material design. That's what they were going for with that. It's like, what if these things were physical objects? They'd have weight and like, how far is this on top of this? Well, that would determine what kind of shadows that it has. So we want that bottom nav to be like on top of the text. All right. Well, one thing is on top of something else, it casts a shadow. So we could do, let's see, we do this a couple different ways. We do box shadow. If I want it to go up, I think that's a negative dimension. And then I want that to, probably not as much blur. Things that are really close to each other don't have very much blur in the shadow. The shadow edge is a little bit harder. Things that are higher up have like really diffuse, blurry shadows. So we're gonna start there. And I'll start halfway. Didn't like my, oop. What didn't I like about the syntax on that? Is that, it was that. There we go. Okay, it's a little bit better. What if I do something like that? Okay, so like if we had a really diffuse shadow, this looks like it's a mile on top of it. Knock that down a little bit, and then make the shadow a little harder. Ah, that's the left and right one. That's why that wasn't working. Okay, so there's a hard shadow. And we can take a look at the color of that too. I think I want to make it a little bit darker.
What do you mean by hard shadow?
Sharp edge versus blurry edge. So something that was super blurry would look like this. That's a very like blurry, diffuse shadow. Versus this, oops, went too far, which is a very sharp shadow.
It almost looks like you stuck another div in there.
Yeah. Okay, so go not very much blur on this and not very much size for that. Okay, so if I do something like that, hey now, that looks like it's on top of it. A little less blur. Now it looks like it's actually sitting on top of it. Pretty cool. Another thing I can do to help it seem like it's on top is things that are on top are usually lighter than things that are on bottom. And I have a darker background on that one. So what if I flip those around? So I have the off-white background on the body and then the white background on the thing. Do that there and that at 100%. Okay. That looks a little bit better. Sort of feel like that size is too big now. It's fine. Cool. So we've made a fixed footer that we're not at risk of like running over the text. It looks like it's sitting on top of the content. We've got icons on it. That's a whole bunch of things. Questions about anything we did there?
Could you do the same sort of shadowing for the icons, or is that kind of like design overkill?
Say if you wanted the icons to sit on top of the thing rather than like being in them.
That's right.
You could. Here's where that would make sense. So right now they look like they're on the same plane as whatever that bar is. If I want it to sit on top, now let's take a look. I think for these, I would have to use text shadow. Let's take a look. So yeah, now they kind of look like they're sitting on top of it, and like that's a look. If I take off some of the blur to make it a little bit closer, sharpen up the shadows, maybe make those a little smaller. Or even better, maybe offset that way, but not this way. Okay. So that like certainly gives those some dimension.
But like, is that designed overkill, or is it just sort of personal preference, or?
It's not personal preference. It's a design tool that you could use. So you go, all right, well, how much like Z dimension do I want to have on this? Does that make those stand out from the background more? And so that would probably make more sense if, for whatever reason, this menu bar wasn't off-white, it was tartan or something like that, where it's got something a little more busy going on, and you need to separate that content from it. Using some dimension is a way to solve that problem. The answer in design is never personal preference. It's always like, well, what problem does that solve? And like, I don't think this actually solves that much of a problem here, but I could imagine scenarios in which it would solve a problem. Another thing you could do that might better accomplish that is because like the other thing that you do when you add a drop shadow to these is you sort of fuck up the shapes a little bit, and it just sort of makes them look blurrier. So another thing you could do is if I take this icon and give it a background color of some blue, 240, 50%. Cool. And then if I make the color of this not inherit anymore, but white. All right. And then I give this maybe some padding, like an M padding, maybe a little less than that. Cool. And then I radius the borders so that they're a circle. Now, if I move the box shadow to this, that works a little bit better at creating that dimension. Like that. So if I did need to distinguish those icons from like the thing under them, I'd probably just be more inclined to reach for something kind of like that.
Thanks.
And at that point, it probably makes more sense to knock the size of the icons down a little bit more. too small. So like that sort of works. Now check this out. This is another neat thing we can do. So those are sitting on top of it. When we press them, maybe we want them to go into it. We can do that. So what you do, let's grab this icon selector. What's this?
Pseudo selector.
Pseudo selector. So some state of the element. An element that's active is one that is currently being clicked on, as in like your finger is holding the mouse button down at that moment. So that's a state that an element can be in. So if I say, all right, when it's active, I want to do the same thing, but I want to make the shadow go the other way. All right. Shoot. Oh, sorry, the links are active. Fuck. Ooh, this is a tricky one. So icons don't have active states. Anchors do. So we have to do something kind of clever with this. Any ideas how I can make this look exactly like this while, like this box shadow, and therefore the border radius, and therefore the padding, and therefore the background color, all of that stuff needs to be on the anchor, not the icon. How do I do that and make this still work?
Can you make the anchor inherit from the eye active?
Ooh, so yes. Also, that's going to double up on some of these things. What if I'm going to make that the active state of our anchor? We can also do all of these things to an anchor. You can make your anchor big and let's see. So we can say that we want this box shadow to normally be like this. We want the anchor's background color to be this. We want the padding for that to be that. And we can say that we want that thing to have the border radius. That's a little fucky right now, but we'll get there. We might need to be able to display this as inline block. Hey, there we go. Now we're back in business. And now, when I click on one of those things, oops. So this this little sorry, it's not the plus thing. This HOV thing will let you toggle those to take a look at them. So we can toggle the there it is.
Cool.
So light's coming from the top, light's coming from the bottom. So you can do a little like push effect on that. I don't think it'll let me do it with the mobile emulator. Yeah, there you go. I'll do that. There we go. So yeah, if I turn the mobile emulator off, there, it's like a really subtle animation. Looks like you're pushing it in. Okay. Let's see, where are we on time? All right, we're out. So I want to give you a hint of how this off canvas could work. So what we're talking about is you click on this and some thing slides in over from the side, and there's like a little shade over the content and like that kind of stuff. So I'll tell you right now what the magic trick behind that is. It's one of the few things that you really do kind of need a wrapper for in CSS. The way that it works is that this is the document. This is the viewport. So you end up with some content here, and then your off-canvas content is right here. So it's in the document, it's just not in the viewport. So then you animate this thing that isn't in the viewport into the viewport, and you animate it away. Next time you're using a website that uses an off-canvas navigation, like take a look at the DOM structure for it. This thing is usually absolutely positioned relative to some like container that is the viewport, and it's positioned at right negative 100% or something like that. And then it animates to 0, which makes it look like it came into view. Pretty cool. Styling questions.
Why did switching the anchor to inline block fix the problem that you were having?
Because an anchor by default is inline, and inline elements don't have padding. This thing here with padding and border and margin, that's the box model. The box model only exists on block elements. It doesn't exist on inline elements. A character can't have margin. A character doesn't have padding. It's inline. That wouldn't make any sense. So if I need to treat an inline element, if I essentially just need to give it the box model, I can use inline block. It'll still be flow content, but now I have box model properties for it. I'm also thinking that instead of using padding for this, here's my gripe. These icons are different widths. And so this one, like this one's a circle, but this one's like this kind of janky oval. So the way I would solve that is, oh, this is really gonna fuck your mind. So instead of inline block, inline flex.
Ooh.
And then.
Why are you flexing, Kyle?
Oh, look, they got their text decoration back. Do text decoration none. I'll make those go away. And then we can super center it. So we can just justify content center. We can align items center. We get rid of the padding. And instead, just use fixed widths and heights. You can say width 75 pixels, height 75 pixels. And then just let Flexbox center it. Isn't that cool? Now they're all the same size. What else? Cool. Thank you. Have fun on your projects.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.